into play, and then his endgame, what he ends up doing with the Omniscience is Grizzlebrand and Emrakul.
I love Living Wish. I'm really glad to see it personally, Living Wish being played, just because of the fact of what it can do.
Yeah, Living Wish is a super powerful card. For those of you who don't know, it's a somewhat older card. I believe it's originally from Judgment.
I
was
believe
it
you're
Torment,
correct.
maybe?
Maybe it was Torment.
It might be Torment, but anyway, what it does is it's colorless and a green for a sorcery, and then you take a creature card from outside of the game, so from your sideboard, and you put it into your hand, and then you remove the Living Wish from the game. Now, this is an extremely powerful tutor. It's somewhat reminiscent of Eldamri's Call, but you don't have to play the silver bullets in your main deck like you would with a card like Eldamri's Call.
Especially when the fact that a lot of times they're going through your deck, or they're casting Thought Seizes and stuff like that to get your cards out of your deck that you want to lose. This way you can bring it in without having someone take it away from you, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, you get to basically be pre-sideboarded a lot of the time too. It also gets lands, so he can use that. He can use the Living Wish to, get a Boseiju or a Cavern of Souls, depending on what he needs for a specific situation.
Well, it looks like we're going here, and both these players are undefeated currently at this time.
Yeah, Jeremy Quinn going to pop this Polluted Delta, grabbing a basic island, trying to dodge Wastelands. And on turn 1, it looks like his play of choice off the basic island would be Ponder. And
Correct.
That's exactly what he's going for.
Looks like you got an island.
Can't really see what he's got there, but what he's trying to do is set up this Show and Tell Omniscience combo. So it looks like he may already have the Show and Tell if he's putting it that deep, but he may also just be trying to protect it from a discard spell on Kenny's first turn. He's not sure what Kenny's playing yet, probably.
But he will quickly.
Yep, and a
Naming.
Cavern of Souls naming Goblin, and the jig is up. Jeremy Quinn suddenly not going to be playing around much discard anymore.
Well, Goblin Lackey right away.
And turn 1 Lackey's pretty strong against Jeremy Quinn's Show and Tell Omniscience deck, because he has no creatures or removal spells that he can play on the second turn, and that Lackey is definitely going to hit him. So Jeremy's going to need to resolve that Show and Tell on turn 3, which I imagine he will be able to. And I'm not sure what he's going to put into play. I saw a Grizzlebrand in his hand, so he may just Show and Tell that into play. But sometimes Goblins can just overpower a card like Grizzlebrand. You never know.
And we just saw the fact that Goblins can overpower with you having 30 life. And with the fact
I mean, his opponent at one point had well over 40 life in that
Oh,
game.
okay, it was 40, all right.
Yeah. And I mean, life total, the big thing in Magic is life total somewhat irrelevant in the long term of a game. If I could start a game with 9 cards in my hand or start a game at 40 life, against most opponents, I'd much rather start with 9 cards in my hand.
Absolutely. The more cards you have, the better opportunity you have to get things you need right away to win faster.
All right, so I'm Lackey here. Going to crack Jeremy Quinn. He's going to fall to 18 here. He was already at 19 from that fetch land. And let's see what kind of goblins Kenny Dungar is going to be able to drop into play. It looks like he has a War Chief, and that's going to make all of his goblins cost 1 less to cast. So he's also going to be able to cast a Matron on his turn.
Well, this is the big turn he's got to get. Jeremy's got to get things going for him right now. Oh, another Ponder. 3 Ponders.
She's looking for that 3rd land. He's unable to find it. And Kenny choosing to activate that Rishanon port instead of instead of further pressing his advantage here, which seems like it's a very strong play against Jeremy, because at this point, with Jeremy playing cards like Ponder, he's got to be pretty sure that Jeremy's on some sort of combo deck. I mean, if you're fetching up a basic island and playing Ponder, you're almost certainly a Show and Tell deck. Ponder really only seen in decks like Rug Delver that don't play any basic lands, and combo decks.
And now he's got his 3rd island.
Yeah, so a Pile Driver comes down, and that's going to have haste thanks to War Chief.
Ouch.
And it looks like Jeremy's going to be taking a ton of damage this turn. So that Pile Driver is going to be attacking for 5, and that's altogether that's 8 damage. So Jeremy going to be dropping to 10 here, and
he's going to be on a 1-turn clock here.
Yeah, Jeremy needs to have a land plus the Show and Tell, and then combo off this next turn. Otherwise, he's just dead.
At least the good thing about it is that he can combo off without fear of any issue coming back at him as far as counter spells or anything like that.
Yes. And here's that Krenko Mob Boss that we saw earlier. And that card is much better than I initially thought it was going to be. When I saw it on the list, I was a little bit surprised, but then I saw it play and was really impressed. All right, this is the big turn. Can Jeremy show and tell an Omniscience?
He locked down the land.
Yeah, I mean, well, he has a third land. I believe he has a Swamp in his hand, because he definitely pondered past one at one point.
Well, let's see what he does here.
Yeah. So perhaps, maybe he didn't keep the Swamp in his hand. He's probably kicking himself now because of that, but asking what Kenny revealed off that ringleader, trying to figure out if there's any sort of spell that could interact with him. And he's definitely going to have to show and tell here. But
even
right
if he
now,
does,
what he's thinking to himself is, if he doesn't have the Omniscience, if he can't combo off this turn, then maybe it's not worth it to show him that he's a show and tell deck. You know, because if he just show and tells a Grizzlebrand into play, he might just lose anyway.
well, you know, you give him no information by doing that. That allows Jeremy to game 2 at least have the fact that he has an advantage over the fact that his opponent will not know what he's on.
Yeah, his opponent won't know that he's playing the show and tell deck. And, I mean, the big problem with that line of thought, though, is that what's Goblins really going to have in his sideboard for a show and tell Omniscience deck? Goblins is just going to have Red Elemental Blast, and they just saw 3 islands. There's no way they're not going to side in the Rebs anyway.
And he just scooped.
Yeah.
And we're off to game 2. Let's look at the sideboards here.
So Jeremy Quinn, I'm pretty surprised there, because I definitely saw Swamp somewhere on the top there, and I think he may have mispondered his way into not being able to show and tell that game. So maybe it's just that he couldn't win that turn. He was trying to hide his plan from Kenny, but you never know. He may have just put the cards in the wrong order and underestimated the amount of damage that Kenny's deck was capable of dishing out.
I'm really looking at his sideboard here, and I'm wondering what Jeremy's going to bring in to help out. Surgical Extraction, maybe?
No. It's Surgical Extraction. Surgical Extraction you wouldn't want against the Goblin deck. I mean, Jeremy Quinn's sideboard is mostly a Living Wish package.
Yeah.
The cards that he wants here, he definitely wants the one Pernicious Deed. That's a card that he can Rector up and can get him out of a lot of bad situations that he might be against when he's playing against Goblins. Besides that, there's nothing he really wants here. Ulamog, not great. He might put in an extra Emrakul just because it's basically like the best card against that deck, but then again, then he can't Living Wish for it, so no, he's not going to do that. So I think the only change he's really going to make here is he's probably going to take out a Force of Will, and he's going to add a Pernicious Deed.
Well, like you said, the Pernicious Deed will help him out in that situation. It is funny when you look at this deck to just realize that this is a sideboard basically designed around one of his cards only.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the problems with a card like Living Wishes. Although in a lot of senses you're pre-sideboard and have that advantage against people, in post-sideboarded games, your deck doesn't really gain a lot of the strength that other decks might gain in games 2 and 3. Now, Kenny Dungar in the last match almost threw the match away because he sided in Surgical Extraction against an Esper Delver deck. And for those of you at home who are trying to get better and trying to figure out what cards you want to sideboard and when you want to sideboard them, Surgical Extraction is a card that the only time you should ever sideboard that in is if your opponent's deck is specifically built around the graveyard. If they're playing Dredge, you want to bring in those Surgical Extractions. If they're playing Reanimator, you want those Surgical Extractions. But if they're not playing a deck that's specifically built around the graveyard, then Surgical Extraction is just not a very good card. Because even if you get a card and get to remove all the copies from their deck, you've basically just thrown away a card and mulligan before the game even started. So, when you were watching that last match, Kenny, Surgical Extracting a Path to Exile, searched his opponent's library, found 1 Path to Exile, and basically just paid 2 life to do absolutely nothing and thin his opponent's deck of, cards that weren't even that good in the matchup. The only card that really mattered was there was Stoneforge Mystic, and Stoneforge Mystic has already done the damage once it's hit play. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Once Stoneforge comes in, Batterskull, we're looking good there.
So it's looking like we're underway already, and Jeremy Quinn leads things off with a Jataxian Probe. And perhaps Kenny Dungar could put these cards closer to the middle of the table so we could see them. Maybe we could communicate with the judge, because I'd really like to see what they are. It looks like he has a Wasteland, Cavern of Souls, Plateau.
Lackey.
That's a ringleader right
that's
there.
a ringleader?
And
Okay.
then Thalia. And, oh yeah, there is a Lackey, and then a Vial. So it's a really good opener here for Kenny. It's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, I really...
But he's on the draw against the Show and Tell deck. And Goblins traditionally has a really bad matchup against these combo decks. But Thalia is really kind of the thing that has made Goblins viable against those kind of decks.
Brainstorm right away.
So turn 1 Brainstorm, something you normally wouldn't want to do. But, you know, when you're against a deck like Goblins, if you already have most of your combo pieces, maybe you're just digging for a very specific spell for the first turn.
We have other matches this round. We have Caleb Dunward against Jeremy Stowe. They were both roommates. We have Matt Hoey was on last round against
Andre Yenyuk,
Yep.
who is a popular streamer, actually. All right, so Kenny gonna have the option to lead things off with a Vial or a Lackey, and I think he's gonna want to go with the Lackey here. He may not know he's against that type of deck, though, so he's going to have to think this one through. Chooses to go with the Vial, and that's a pretty big mistake here, but he doesn't know his opponent's in the combo deck. So here, Jeremy Quinn conceding game 1 before showing Kenny Dungar what he was up to has proven to be a huge boon for him. Now, it's gonna buy him a full turn. It's basically like Jeremy Quinn just time-walked his opponent by conceding that first game.
And we just discussed,
we
just discussed about the fact that, you know, was it a good or was it not a good idea? And it seems like it's working really well right now for him. Another Brainstorm.
Yeah, so this is kind of telling that Jeremy Quinn may not be in the best spot. Normally, you don't want to use those Brainstorms unless you have a fetch land to go along with them. Maybe he already has a fetch land in his hand, but a turn 1 Brainstorm is almost always the wrong play. And, you know, you only really do it if you're planning on winning on turn 2.
And that's not going to happen with this deck. He needs more than that to get to there where he needs to. There he plays a Island.
Yeah, and unfortunately for him, it looks like the next turn he might be underneath the Thalia. And it's going to be a Thalia, and he's going to be facing down a Lackey, which could be very problematic for him.
There's a second Aether Vial.
Yeah, and that Vial probably not going to matter this game. Oh, he's playing a really slow game.
Well, that's going to give Jeremy more time to be able to get to where he needs to.
Yeah, and I mean, the Wasteland definitely pushes Jeremy back a little bit, and he's not going to be able to win this next turn. And then the Lackey's going to come down, the Thalia's going to hit play next turn. So,
Lotus Petal?
Never mind. It looks like Jeremy's about to combo off, and that Lotus Petal puts him far enough ahead where he's going to be able to do this.
There's the Show and Tell. Which one he's going to go with? Thalia?
Thalia would probably be the right choice here, but
okay.
No, instead chooses to go with Ringleader and an Omniscience from Jeremy Quinn. So Kenny Dungar going to reveal the top 4 cards of his library, and again he brings in these Surgical Extractions. And I mean, what are you going to Surgical Extraction the Show and Tells after he's already Show and Telled you? That just doesn't make any sense. So
and there you go.
Here we are. And again, the Surgical Extraction is just a dead card for Kenny Dungar. He likes to bring those in a lot, and it's just not working out for him. Last match, I'm not sure if he recognized how bad that was for him. It almost lost the match for him, the fact that he had those Surgicals in his deck the last round. In Game 2, it definitely lost him the game. And in Game 3, it almost lost him the game because he had those in his deck.
It looks like he's going to a sideboard. Maybe he will take them out, but...
That's what we thought last time, but...
Where do you think he's going to go now? I mean... What other cards is he bringing in? You would assume he brought in the
I think he took out his... I think he took out 3 Goblin Lackeys in favor of Surgical Extractions for Game 2, because I heard him earlier say that he always takes out most of his Lackeys when he's on the draw. And, I mean, that seems really bad to me, but that seems to be his strategy. So, let's see. I mean, it's been working out for him so far today. So I'm not sure...
I don't know why you would not want to have Lackeys in at the moment. Because of the fact of against him. Yeah, combo deck. Because you got that Lackey to hit and hit quickly and get to where you want to get to as far as cards that you can play. It fascinates me on that one, but we will see. They're both sideboarding.
All right, and here we are going to Game 3. Jeremy Quinn, kind of sneaky there. And that was really smart of him to know that he was not going to win the second game and to go ahead and just packed that one in, figured out the math, and decided show and tell into Gristlebrand, not going to be good enough this game. I'd rather just have my opponent not know what I'm on. But Kenny Dungar siding in a lot of cards that are just really bad.
That's not surprising when but like you just described, he seems to be having a block strategy in his head how he sideboards. Instead of playing for the matchup, he seems to be playing just to sideboard the way he always sideboards the same. It almost seems like he's going to those surgical extractions
again, it's
every
a deck
time.
with Tundras.
Yeah.
So maybe he just sideboards this way against decks with Tundras.
Well, we'll see here how they go. Everybody see if they keep their hands here.
Yeah, so Kenny Dungar keeps. And pretty land-heavy hand for Kenny Dungar. So has those red elemental blasts in there. The Gitaxian Probe from Jeremy Quinn's going to tell him exactly what he has to play around. And there's a red elemental blast, a Goblin Ringleader, a Rishanon Port, Cavern of Souls, Mountain, and Bloodstained Mire. So the red elemental blast is really the only card that Jeremy Quinn's going to need to worry about here.
And that's something he can play around.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he has the cards he needs to power through something like that. But, I mean, he's really going to need to find something like Cabal Therapy before he can go off here. Because Kenny's just going to be, playing lands and doing nothing for the first few turns. So he's always going to have that red elemental blast up.
But that's also an advantage for Jeremy, too, because he gets the opportunity to... He knows what he knows to play around, and now he can take his time to get to where he needs to.
Yeah, and this is a really loose keep on Kenny Dungar's part. I mean, he doesn't have any threat until the 4th turn with that opening hand, and he knows he's against a show and tell combo deck as Goblins. You cannot keep a hand like that. You really need something with a Lackey. You need some sort of pile driver or Thalia draw. Going ahead and keeping a hand where your first creature is on turn 4, you're going to lose the game unless you draw perfectly off the top almost.
I would have said exactly like you said, keeping that hand if Thalia was in there, just because it forces Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, Thalia is obviously huge against Jeremy, so he definitely wants to keep anything with Thalia.
Looks like he has
and obviously unless it's like 6 lands Thalia, but
looks like he has Ponder, Force of Will, Cavern of Souls.
All right, so that Brainstorm, and let's see, does Jeremy have the fetch land to go with that Brainstorm? No. Did he Brainstorm locked himself, didn't he?
I believe so.
It's looking like both these players just kept bad hands. And I mean, Kenny Dungar now gonna get away with murder here, keeping a miserable hand against combo and having an opponent who is forced to Brainstorm on turn 2, looking for a second land and put 2 non-lands back in the top of his library. Not going to be a good thing. All right. Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. Jeremy Quinn on the draw here. Which Taxian Pro threw me off.
Well, it's good that he did that because he got rid of 2 of his Cavern of the Souls that he didn't really want to have in his hand. He already had 1, so obviously he had 3 Cavern of Souls there at his draw.
Yeah, it's just definitely not what he wants to do. And that's one of the things about Brainstorm that's so good in Legacy is the ability to shuffle away cards in your hand that you don't need anymore. It's huge. All right. Cabal Therapy is going to be able to take care of that red elemental blast, but will he want to wait until the turn before Kenny goes, or the turn before he's going to go off? Who knows?
Okay,
another Gitaxian Probe. Let's see. Now he has 2 Ringleaders, a red elemental blast, and a bunch of lands. So still no offensive action until the 4th turn. Also chose to play that Mountain instead of the Rishanon Port. Instead of tying up Jeremy Quinn's mana just a little bit, he'd rather keep open the red elemental blast.
Yeah, I think the situation's not looking good for Kenny at all. I mean, he's gotta.
Yeah, I mean, it's
really got to
a
get there. Where is the turn 2 play?
Jeremy really just needs to not do anything and to have a terrible draw. Otherwise,
there you go.
She's going to lose. So here, Jeremy Quinn can just say Ringleader, yeah. And now Kenny Dungar's hand is the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. A Ponder from Jeremy Quinn. Will Kenny go ahead and Red Elemental Blast this? No. He sees Pernicious Deed. On his hand, he has a Living Wish, which can grab an Academy Rector if it needs to, but his mana's not quite there. So,
and he'll shuffle it away. He didn't like what he had.
Yeah, needs to find some combo pieces.
But clearly, he's got the time now. I mean,
oh yeah, I mean Kenny isn't doing anything now.
You got to wonder when Kenny wants to fire off that Elemental Blast just to try to slow things down a little.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he knows that there's the Cabal Therapy, so as soon as Jeremy Quinn decides to stick an Academy Rector, he can just sacrifice the Academy Rector to the Cabal Therapy and name Red Elemental Blast.
Okay, now he plays it.
That's it. Yeah, so Port's going to tap that down. We can open that red mana.
There's another island.
Yeah, and let's see. Is Jeremy going to have any more action this turn? He might just pass it back again. Both of these players are undefeated, 6-0.
Okay, we're a Brainstorm, Ponder. Brainstorm.
Brainstorming. And looking through his hand, deciding which of these cards he can put back on top. He really wants to find a white source of mana so that he can Rector. Or I guess maybe he needs green and white because he needs the Living Wish for the Rector.
Yes.
So it's kind of a high hurdle for him at this point.
Okay. Caverning.
And a Goblin Lackey, Mon's Goblin Raiders for Kenny Dungar here. And that's a 15-turn clock. Can Jeremy Quinn manage to win this game before that Goblin Lackey goes the distance? That's the question we're all asking ourselves right now.
15 turns? I think he's in good position not to make it in 15 turns.
I think you're right.
Especially now he gets to shuffle away the Ponder he had and hopefully get something better up there that he's looking for.
He shuffled away a Ponder?
No. When he pondered, he put the cards
the Brainstorms. Okay.
Yeah, the Brainstorms. He got to shuffle away what he wanted.
Yeah. The Brainstorm. I was gonna say he shuffled away a Ponder.
No.
That's crazy.
No. He shuffled away his Brainstorm, which was good because now that frees him up to hopefully get better cards. So like you said, we are still waiting for him to hit his combo pieces.
Gonna go ahead and Living Wish here. Let's see what he finds. And Kenny's not gonna be able to do anything about that.
Which one do you think he's gonna get the?
If he doesn't already have the Rector and he does have access to white mana, yeah, Academy Rector.
There it is.
So this is really good here, the Academy Rector, because that's going to do an excellent job of dodging the Red Elemental Blast. It's white, so it can't be countered by Red Elemental Blast, and then he can sacrifice it to the Cabal Therapy to get the triggered ability and the get the Red Elemental Blast out of his opponent's hand. So it looks like that's another Cabal Therapy. He's going to name Red Elemental Blast, see that Kenny Dungar's hand is just
nothing.
Again, nothing, and pass the turn over to Mon's Goblin Raiders.
Well, there's a surgical extraction.
And that's going to be pretty good here. And by pretty good, I mean it's not going to do anything at all.
What is he going to take? Brainstorm? Ponder? He doesn't really have anything in there that...
Surgical extraction targeting. Bring out a 16. Let's see what he decides to target.
We see Force of Will, Cavern of Souls, Academy Rector, and Grizzlebrand.
Yep. He decided to Surgical Extraction his opponent's Cabal Therapies when he has no cards in his hand that are non-land cards. So he can play any non-land card he draws at the top of his deck, but decided that getting rid of those Cabal Therapies is very important. Getting rid of those Cabal Therapies, for the record, will prevent Jeremy Quinn from being able to sacrifice this Academy Rector. So...
But...
I mean...
It's 2 life and he still hasn't solved the problem that he's staring at right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not all that relevant.
He's slowing things down a little.
Both of those Cabal Therapies already did a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, the first one 2-for-1 the ringleaders out of his hand, and then the second one took away the red elemental blast, and so he already got 3-for-2'd by them, and now he just 4-for-2'd himself. So he just turned both of those Cabal therapies into 1-mana Hymn to Turox. All right, Cavern of Souls going to name whatever Academy Rector's creature type is.
Yes.
Cleric.
Cleric.
An attack for 1. Jeremy Quinn down to 13 now. The race is on. And an Aether Vial. I imagine Jeremy Quinn's going to be okay with that one. Tapping down that Cavern of Souls.
Aether Vial's nice, but he's not going to be able to do anything.
And look, this fetch land. Now, a little bit of a snafu in the deck construction of Jeremy Quinn here. Jeremy Quinn's Verdant Catacombs is unable to fetch a white source of mana. He could have included another blue fetch land over the Verdant Catacombs, and then he would have been able to fetch up the Tundra, and he would have basically won the game right now, but he instead has a Verdant Catacombs in his deck. So just got punished for that pretty hard.
And it's a 1-of. It's not like it was a 4-of. It's a 1-of in his deck that he has.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely should have been a Scalding Tarn. And there's a Misty Rainforest.
There we go.
Here he goes. Going to drop down to 11. Going to go grab himself a Tundra here.
And now Academy Ruins can go.
Yeah, Academy Rector's going
can go.
Going to hit play. And that's going to stem the bleeding here.
So he takes Aether Vial up to 2. Has another elemental. Oh.
And that's a Matron. That's pretty good. That's about as good as it gets here. Goblin Matron coming down. Going to search for the highest impact goblin that he can find. And I think that might be Krenko. Maybe he just wants to go for Pile Driver so that he can just pile on the damage as fast as possible, so to speak, as it were. I mean, that might just be the best play. I mean, he has the Vial on 2. He can use that. He can put the guy to play. Oh, a Sting Scourger. That's pretty good too, actually.
Well, he's got some decisions to make. I mean, any one of those 3 options are fairly good for what the situation determines. Let's see what he goes with.
So let's go with the Ringleader. So he's not going to be able to put that in play this turn. Instead, choosing to go the card advantage route. Pass the turn over to Jeremy, and let's see. All right, so with the Academy Rector, now Jeremy Quinn no longer has a way to sacrifice this Academy Rector, thanks to Kenny Dungar's Surgical Extraction. However, Kenny Dungar chose not to use his Rishadan port, and now Jeremy Quinn is going to be able to just cast a Gristlebrand.
And he just named Demon with Cavern of Souls.
Yeah, and
he's got 1.
Yeah, he's got 7 mana.
Yep.
Doesn't Gristlebrand? No, it costs 8.
It's 5 and
3.
Yeah, 5 and 3.
Okay, so.
Yep, there's a Wasteland.
Here, Jeremy Quinn's deck floundering around a lot here. He just did a whole lot of nothing this game. And we are a Ringleader. Pretty good Ringleader. Finds a Matron. That's just about perfect, actually. And yeah, it could have hit more, but Matron is the best goblin it could have hit because the Vial's on 3. Now he can start chaining Ringleaders, but he can't attack into that Rector because if he does, he just loses, basically. So, Jeremy Quinn here, I'm surprised he hasn't played the Pernicious Deed just to have it on the table so that there's no way that he can possibly die.
I'd be fascinated to talk to him to find out why he isn't playing
Maybe
that card.
he shuffled away the Pernicious Deed, but I don't understand why you would do that against goblins. Just having that in play makes it so that you can't lose the game ever.
As he searches through.
And finds a Krenko Mob Boss. And as we've seen, Krenko Mob Boss has actually been very good for Kenny Dungar this weekend. It is a 4-mana, 2/2 red, 3/3 legendary Goblin Warrior. You can tap it to put X red Goblin creature tokens on the battlefield, where X is the number of goblins you control. And currently he has a ton of goblins on the battlefield. So he's just going to be able to drop that Krenko into play.
4 more goblins. He's got 4 on the board right now. There's one off the screen we can't see.
Now, Kenny Dungar has top decked an additional 2 red elemental blasts, and to go with the ringleader triggers, and that's actually going to help him a lot here against Jeremy. Use that wasteland, and still not attacking into Jeremy Quinn. Jeremy Quinn really wants to draw that Pernicious Deed that he shuffled away.
Okay, we look at another brainstorm.
And it's a brainstorm. He has multiple fetch lands, so that's going to be pretty good here. Finds himself in Emrakul, the Eon's Torn. But does he have a way to put that into play?
Does he have the show and tell in his hand?
And the show and tell's not really going to be good enough anymore, because there are multiple red elemental blasts in Kenny Dungar's hand.
I am.
So, at this point, the Pernicious Deed, the perfect card here. It can also destroy his Academy Rector and put the Omniscience into play. Everything about Pernicious Deed is perfect here. It not only would prevent him from ever losing, but also makes him win.
And typically it's a good thing. You typically play to win, especially considering both these players are currently undefeated at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the Mob Boss.
Krenko Mob Boss coming into play here. Another Rishanon port. Kenny Dungar going to be able to really tie up Jeremy Quinn's mana on this next turn.
Could he have managed to keep that hand and somehow find a way to win this game? I mean, this is
like turn like 30. So both of them like don't even really have cards left in their decks. Jeremy Quinn sacrificing this Polluted Delta, dropping himself to 10. Interestingly enough, him doing that puts him within range of lethal if there's a War Chief on Kenny Dungar's side of the table. But he needs to do that because he knows the card on top of his deck isn't going to help him.
It's amazing how difficult it is to try to have him actually get to where he needs to win. He's just not getting the right cards on top.
Yeah, now he really, really, really needs to hit Pernicious Deed here.
He's locked up two of his lands now.
All right, let's see. Looking through his graveyard. Now, in his deck, what cards interact with his graveyard? Looking through the main deck and sideboard, nothing. So, just doing that for the sake of, I don't know, but really pondering his options here. He has a full group of cards and really trying to figure out what he has in his hand here.
Taps 3.
And let's see. I'm going to go ahead and cast Show and Tell.
Which will get Rotten Elemental blasted.
And he's got the Force of Will for the first one.
Nope, that's it.
No, he doesn't. He didn't have double force in his hand?
He had 2 of them in his hand. Unless he
shuffled them away. All right, so Kenny Dungar now 7-0 with his Goblin deck. Very interesting keep there against the Show and Tell combo deck. And able to win that one anyway.
Even the guys seem to be talking about, they both seem to be kind of amazed how it managed to work out for them.
Yeah, hey, welcome back everybody. Again, I'm Jacob Van Loon, and I'm being joined by Rob Martin. We're here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, bringing you guys coverage of the Star City Games Legacy Open. We just watched a Goblin deck beat a Show and Tell deck. That's not something Goblins can do too easily, and not only did the Goblin deck beat the Show and Tell deck, but he did so keeping a hand that did nothing until the 4th turn. And all of his action on the 4th turn was stripped from his hand with a Cabal Therapy. So, very interesting choice of lines for both players. We saw Jeremy Quinn, the Show and Tell player, shuffle away a Pernicious Deed, which is a card that if you have it in play against goblins, there is no way they can ever beat you.